Hello, Houston. Happy President's Day. It is another Catholic lunch break here on AM 1430 KSHJ. Every Monday, we come back and we catch up on everything Catholic that's going on in Houston. My name is Tim Mott, General Manager of this radio station, AM 1430, and your host for today. David Magianes is out. He's out for a funeral, so say a prayer for him. And filling in for David, Joel, you're doing double duty today. We've got Joel Matthews on the video switching and being my co-host. And that means that I'm doing double duty on the soundboard and hosting. And so we are going to, between the two of us, we might have a full brain. Is that right?
We're multitasking, Tim. We're multitasking.
Multitasking. So, may the graces abound. But we've got a great show for you today. It is absolutely packed with, it's going to be a little bit of an intellectual show, but because that's my sweet spot, I think that this is going to be fun. And I think you are going to have fun too, listener. But before we get to all of that, we've got a lot of events coming up. Not quite as many as last week. Like if you tuned in last week, you may have thought, well, Tim's just reading me his calendars.
Yeah. Last week was very busy. You put a lot of miles in.
It was very busy, but we still have a lot of great things for you. But before we get started, let's start with prayer the way we always do. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine assistance was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. Before thee I come, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
So because we are multitasking, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. We're going to introduce our guest, and they're going to be like the sub-co-host for the day. So we're going to start over here with Todd Johnson. Todd Johnson, Executive Director of Fullness
Joel,
of Truth.
how are you all doing?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Very good. Very good.
Okay, so what's up? What's new in your world? Anything going on in Fullness of Truth land?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Fullness of Truth is coming up on the leap year here, the 29th of February. We're going to have our Salvation, What Every Catholic Should Know conference at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church.
Great. Okay. Well, we're going to dive into that a little bit later on. And also joining us back again on the microphone is Sarah Cortez from Catholic Literary Arts. Sarah, how are you doing today?
Hey, Tim. Wonderful.
I believe you left some gloves at the.
I left my beautiful red leather gloves at the prayer breakfast, but I want to tell you that breakfast was awesome.
That was a very good breakfast, at the Jersey Village last week.
Jersey Village, met so many exciting, wonderful people, and the food. I thought Tony's restaurant in the Heights was the best of the Catholic prayer breakfast.
Oh, but then you came to Los Cucos.
But then I came to Los Cucos, and I was.
Yeah, let me tell you, that's a good one.
I'm still carrying the 5,000 calories that I consumed that morning.
Well, we'll burn them off this morning. And
okay.
You have brought a guest with you today.
I have.
Would you like to introduce Joshua?
Yes, I am so excited that Houston is getting a chance to meet Joshua Wren, doctor, I might add, Joshua Wren, who is co-founder of the honors program at Belmont Abbey in North Carolina. But in addition to this, he runs the most exciting Catholic press, meaning publishing house in America. So he's going to tell you about some of the titles and sort of his, topics of interest, because he lectures and he goes wonderful. He was at Our Lady of Walsingham yesterday, and he hit a home run.
That is awesome. So Joshua, welcome to the Catholic Lunch Break.
It's a delight to be here. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. So we're going to be chatting now. All of you, feel free to jump in anytime. But I've got a couple things. We were at Steps for Students doing some live broadcasting just this past Saturday, and Steps for Students was absolutely amazing. I had a great guest, Wyatt Goolsby. Joel, you remember Wyatt from when he co-hosted in that chair that you're sitting in.
Oh,
right
yes. Now, Wyatt's a trip. He's a fun guy.
So it was great because he was able to go out, take our mobile microphone, and get some interviews on the racetrack racetrack I say, but it's downtown Houston on the streets, the race course. While David and I were manning the table there. So it's really wonderful having extra help. So I'm going to play a couple of the clips. The first one is actually he came off after the race and found one of the Dominican sisters who was running during Steps for Students. So Steps for Students,
Wow.
the 5K run walk that that supports Catholic schools. Here is Sister Maria Goretti. Take a listen to this.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. Yes, we've been covering the Steps for Students 5K run here in downtown Houston, right next to the Co-Cathedral of the Sacred Heart. We've been talking with people who ran in the race and participated, and we're talking here with actually a religious sister. Sister, tell me your name.
I am Sister Maria Goretti from the Vietnamese Dominican Sisters of Mary Immaculate Province in Houston, Texas.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Tell me, why did you want to participate in today's 5K?
I love Catholic school and education, and I love to be part of the community and to be the witness for the young children. Yes.
Well, as you know, it's been very exciting. So many people ran in this or walked. Tell me what it was like to actually go in the 5K. Did you run, walk? How'd you do it?
I did run. I made it, and I feel so good afterwards, like healthy. Yes.
What do you think it is, Sister, that's so valuable about a Catholic education? What is it that makes it so special?
That we be witness for the love that we have experienced, like joyful witnesses. When you walk, you see people around you saying hi to one another and yield one another. So it's a very good spirit seeing people around with the same goal.
Tell me this, how long have you been participating in this? Have you come before?
This is my second time, actually, but I always wanted to go, but something just happened in the past years, and then this year I made it. So.
Well, we're very happy to talk to you and be seeing all your religious sisters here and participating as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless you.
You as well.
Yeah, that was actually to see all of the sisters there. There was a whole group of them, maybe a dozen, that were all running together, and they really did a good job. Those Dominican sisters, the Vietnamese Dominicans, they really are full of joy, just like she mentioned.
They're everywhere. I mean, I challenge anybody to go to a Catholic event in Houston and not see a Dominican sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Dominican Sisters of Mary Immaculate Province. They and also, Wyatt, you can hear his reporter experience coming out there. He used to work for EWTN. He recently moved back to Houston, which is his hometown. He's went to St. Vincent de Paul Catholic School. And a funny thing, his brother, who was a lawyer downtown, also was running in the race. So we managed to get a clip with him. Take a listen to this one.
I'm coming to you outside of the Co-Cathedral of the Sacred Heart in downtown Houston, where I'm talking with my younger brother, Ward Goolsby, who is running in this 5K for today. Ward, thanks for joining me. Tell me a little bit about your background in Catholic education. What's your connection here?
Hey, thanks, Wyatt. Good morning. I've been part of the Catholic school system since I was a little kid. Went to St. Vincent de Paul, and then went on to high school at Straight Jesuit. I now go to church at St. Rose of Lima. I'm registered to run for them this morning. And so it's been a part of my life from the very beginning.
There are so many people out here like yourself who are a product of Catholic education. Tell me, what do you think is the benefit of Catholic education? How has it helped you in the long run?
The community. The people that you meet are your friends for life, mentors for life, and the education, the quality of it has prepared me to go on and have a successful career as a lawyer. I practice here in downtown. And whenever I bump into people that have ties to the Catholic community, it is always a benefit.
Now, Ward, this is going to be your second time running in this Steps for Students. Tell me a little bit about how you prepare for a 5K. What goes into this?
Well, I'll tell you what, I ran the Houston Half Marathon last month. Getting into shape for that, I feel very confident that I can handle 5K after I did about 21K in that half marathon.
Very good. Of course, this one is a little bit not quite as intense as the half marathon.
Well, I sure hope it's not. If it's if something happens and it becomes as intense, I've gone way off course.
Sure, and I know we're all excited to be around friends here in the Catholic community. So, Ward, thanks so much for joining us. Again, we're here in downtown Houston at the Co-Cathedral of the Sacred Heart, and we'll be following you, Ward, and all of the other runners here today. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Catholic education it's amazing to see so many people turn out. There were about 10,000 people running that day. Just this last Saturday, 4 Catholic schools here in Houston. Now, where else are you going to see an event like that where they actually have to shut down downtown to make this happen? So that's great, and it's in the past. We've got a lot to talk about coming up in the future, but you can still donate, I believe, for your school's team. If you missed it, you still have an opportunity. Steps, the number 4students.com. And we were out there broadcasting. Sarah, you've co-hosted with me at some of our broadcasts before last year's car raffle. Well, we actually try to go out and highlight various locations around town that have significance to Catholics. So.
Oh, Tim, I love the fact that your radio station is so committed to the entire Catholic community in Houston. For me, it's been such a great joy there's so many wonderful things going on in the different parishes, community-wide events like Step for Students. For instance, one of the Catholic priests that my husband and I met, 8 years ago, he was doing his pastoral year at All Saints, and he's now running a school and a very complicated parish in Galveston. His Father Jude Zuma.
Oh, Holy Family, yeah. Okay.
And, he's an amazing holy man and great spiritual gift to our diocese. But he runs. He's athletic. He's an excellent soccer player. So it's so wonderful to be able, for those of us who don't have children, like my husband and myself, to be able to participate in the Catholic school system, which I so believe in, by supporting him as he runs.
Absolutely.
So I would encourage all of you, especially if you have a special tie to a priest or a sister, sponsor them. Help them raise money for the Catholic school system.
Well, and come out to the basketball game. Let's talk about priests and athletics. The basketball game on March 6th, priests versus seminarians. Joel, you helped us last year with doing a play-by-play call of that game. You were the color commentator. This is absolutely one of the best events of the year. Father Preston Cantella, 4 years ago, put it together. We wanted to show that priests, and seminarians, they're not like these rarefied kind of, beings that don't have, physical
Don't they
appetites.
study theology 15 hours a day?
Well, yes. And then they do basketball together.
They play basketball?
The rest of the day. So they've gotten together, and it blew out. They maxed out the capacity of Strake Jesuit, the basketball arena there. So they have moved up to a bigger venue, the Del Mar Fieldhouse, around 290 and 610. And I went over there to look. This is a nice stadium. You're going to love it. They have a few tickets available. Fortunately, because it's a bigger venue, they still have some left. But the lower areas have all sold out, but there aren't any bad seats. I went and looked myself. There are no bad seats in that stadium. So you can still get some tickets for the basketball game March 6th, Priests versus Seminarians. The place to get it is HoustonVocations.com/tickets, HoustonVocations.com/tickets. And like I said, you can still get some of they're very inexpensive, like $4, I think, is typical. And there's some discounts for families if you need bulk discounts. But if you can't get to the game, like you, Joel, you just told me you're going to be out of town.
Yeah, I'll be out of town. I'm actually really sad that I'm going to miss it because it was a blast. I got to fill in. I got to play Joe last year. To sit at the table and add the comments. Joe was texting me while he was in his plane, or when he landed on the plane, he kept texting me, telling me what to say and what to do, and
Yes.
I didn't live up to his expectations.
Well, this time it'll be your turn to text him and
That's-
just tell him to stop being so one-sided on the seminarian
That's
side.
exactly right. I'm going to blast him back and forth. It's a great event, and it's like you said, Tim. It lets the parishioners see the seminarians, that are soon to become priests, and then the priests let them see them as original people. In other words, not just on the altar, in their clerics, but also out and about.
That's right. And like I was saying, if you can't make it to the game, we're going to be doing a live broadcast of it on this radio station, AM 1430, 7 o'clock p.m. on March 6th. And also simultaneous on Facebook Live, just like we are right now. If you're watching us on Facebook Live, or you would like to, you can go to facebook.com/GRN online. That's our home base, GRN online. Look for the live video there, both now and on March 6th. So we're going to be doing the official broadcast of it.
Grab some extra tickets. I mean, it's a great way to bring your friends, your kids' friends out, and it's just an awesome way to make an evening of it. Go have dinner, bring the kids, go celebrate the seminarians and the priests. It's just like Steps for Students in other ways. I mean, the kids nowadays need to see the priests outside of the altar, and they need to realize that they are humans. They're wonderful people, both at the altar and outside. And that you can be a priest. More importantly, you can be a priest and still have other activities. You can I think Father Michael Mosley's he's an awesome musician. He's got a band that plays every year. Father Preston Quintella, started this thing. So there are so many other things, and Sister Maria Goretti. There's so many other things that sisters and brothers can do, and priests can do.
That's right. Okay,
Tim, did they secure the Knights of Columbus to do a fish fry?
They did.
Awesome.
Tailgating going to happen before the game.
That's awesome.
And the Knights of Columbus are
Even
going to
better.
be helping out with the fish fry.
Wow, Catholic tailgating. Now that's a concept.
Well, it does happen to be a Friday in Lent, and so no meat allowed. That is not you have to abstain from meat on Fridays in Lent. So but tailgating, we can do it with a fish fry, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. An awesome festive environment.
No excuses.
No excuses. So
I always say that Catholics do a good job, right? Because we're asked to fast from meat on Fridays, but we found a way around it through the fish fry, right? Because you get these
it's like
breaded,
it's like
thick, delicious.
I feel like I ought to have
dishes.
penance from my penance.
It's a difficult penance. Yeah.
No, we're a little spoiled here in America, but we're gonna be good. So I want to give a shout out to my crew there. Patrick Kinnick doing the call out. David Magian is really helping me put it together. And of course, Joe McLean, who's going to be doing our color commentary this time. But stay tuned all the time for, we go to lots of different places for these local flavor to your EWTN programming that's on this radio station. Matter of fact, this Friday, I'm going to be up at Houston Catholic Books and Gifts on Louetta Road in Spring. Going to be broadcasting and selling those car raffle tickets. And then on Saturday at St. Angela Merici, way down on the south side in Sienna Plantation in Missouri City. And they're having a gumbo cook-off. Also, I will have raffle tickets for the Cadillac available there. Unfortunately, I will not be at St. Teresa's and Sugarland on the same day because I can't be two places at once. But St. Teresa's is also doing a gumbo cook-off. So you have two options for gumbo on the south side of town on Saturday.
Tim, I'm feeling a theme. I think when you went through the parishes and
food.
locations, he lined up the food and said, okay, what church is in the area?
Well, how would you do it?
I'm applauding you, Tim.
No, this is good. See, it's the perks of the job. I get to go taste all of the gumbo. But
you should.
That Cadillac is the big thing I got to tell you before we hit our break. That's actually coming up real soon here. See, I'm on top of the schedule and the board, and I'm talking at the same time.
Multitasking.
Whew. Okay, but the Cadillac, we are giving away a Cadillac. I'm sure you've heard about it because we've been going since the beginning of January, but the end of this raffle is coming up. So if you have not got your tickets yet, you need to go get in it right now. GRNonline.com. What is it? It's a 2020 Cadillac CT5 Luxury Edition. This is the first year that the Guadalupe Radio Network has given away a luxury car, not a sports car. So this is going to be a great car for you to commute in comfort, really. That's what it's about.
You commute to the gumbo, right?
Commute to the gumbo. No,
Okay.
I don't get to use it, until I get to deliver it to the. No, we'll figure out how to.
I thought the
it.
first 20,000 miles were yours.
Wait, I like the way you think. Well, can we make an addendum? Let's modify these rules. No. So it's a fundraiser to support the radio network. Is really what it is. We've got 37 radio stations, and not all of them are in big cities like Houston. So we've got to keep this radio network well funded in places that don't always have the capacity to do it. So one of the ways we do it is this fun car raffle, where we're going to give you a chance to win an awesome car for as little as $25, and your purchase of those raffle tickets supports this radio station, keeps us on the air here in Houston and all across the rest of the Guadalupe Radio Network, all 37 stations. So please, get in right now. The drawing is going to be March 6th. Happens to be the same day as the basketball game, so easy to remember there. March 6th, they're going to announce it live on the air, Friday, 8 a.m. on GRN Alive with Dave Palmer. And the tickets are $25 each. You buy 4 tickets, you get a 5th ticket free. So that's a good 5 for $100 deal there. And you can do all of that at grnonline.com.
Drive to the basketball game in your new Cadillac.
I don't know if we could deliver it that fast, but that would be pretty cool. You could drive, to your parish mass and show it off to everyone there. Give it to your priest. Some people have done that in the past.
Question, Tim. So if somebody goes on grnonline.com to buy their tickets, is there a spot for them to put their parish or the radio station that they're associated with to help in that? Because I know that's the internet, right?
Oh, it definitely gets your ticket purchase does count towards Houston's quota.
Excellent.
So I've set a goal. It's a bit of a stretch goal for us. 2,000 tickets by March 6th there, or March 2nd is when the sales close. But 2,000 tickets, and we've still got a ways to go. I'd say we're almost halfway there.
Well, for the listeners that can't make one of the remote locations that might be a little bit farther out that's listening to our message here, if they go in, if they associate with Houston, as long as they put 1430, that would be a good thing, right?
It actually counts. Your zip code will count. You have to put your address in, and we know where you live.
There you go.
There you go. So that is the Cadillac for your soul. So we're going to go to a break now, and when we come back, we're going to deep dive on the fullness of truth that's coming up. Todd Johnson, you've got a bunch of great stuff happening, not only in Houston, but also San Antonio, Corpus Christi, other places, and you've got some great guests, too. So we're going to dive into that right after this on AM 1430. This is the Catholic Lunch Break with Tim Mott and Joel Matthews.
You could win a brand new 2020 Cadillac CT5 Luxury Edition in GRN's 20th Anniversary Car Raffle. Upgrade your style and commute in comfort, all while supporting the mission of the Guadalupe Radio Network. The drawing for the Cadillac is March 6th, so get your raffle tickets soon. Online.com to purchase yours. That's grnonline.com.
The 4th annual Priests versus Seminarians basketball game will be played on Friday, March 6th at Del Mar Fieldhouse, 2020 Mangum Road in Houston. Gates open at 4:30 p.m. A seafood tailgate with the Knights of Columbus begins at 5 p.m. The doors to the Fieldhouse open at 6 p.m. and tip-off is at 7 p.m. To purchase tickets, go to HoustonVocations.com/tickets. That's HoustonVocations.com/tickets.
What do you really know about your salvation? Hi, this is Todd Johnson, the Executive Director of Fullness of Truth, and I'm inviting you to our conference about what every Catholic should know about their salvation on Saturday, February 29th at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church. In cooperation with the St. Augustine Institute, we are hosting Dr. Michael Barber and Dr. John Bergsma, both authors and theology professors. Join us Saturday, February 29th to learn more about our salvation. Go to fullnessoftruth.org for details.
Hi, this is Sarah Cortez with Catholic Literary Arts. We're hosting a half day of spiritual reflection and journaling on the treasures of the mother-daughter relationship. It's on Saturday, February 22nd from 8 a.m. Mass to 12 noon at the Church of the Annunciation downtown. Reverend Paul Felix will provide spiritual direction and Mrs. Leslie Clinton will guide our writing. You will come away restored and renewed. Register at CatholicLiteraryArts.org, CatholicLiteraryArts.org.
You're listening to the Catholic Lunch Break on AM 1430 KSHJ. We're talking about literary stuff today. We're talking about theology, and we're talking about Fullness of Truth Catholic conferences right now. Joining us is Todd Johnson, the Executive Director of Fullness of Truth. Todd, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
So let's dive right into it. For those who are not familiar with Fullness of Truth, what is Fullness of Truth and what is your mission?
Well, we're a Catholic evangelization ministry, and we put on conferences around the state of Texas, everywhere from Dallas to Houston to San Antonio, Austin, Corpus Christi. And in the past, we've even put them on in Louisiana. And we're looking, we've even got plans to expand. We're exploring opportunities with the St. Augustine Institute in Denver, Catholic Answers in San Diego, and other locations.
Nice. Well, what is a Fullness of Truth conference kind of like for the people that go?
Well, so our founder, Dr. Ken Zammit, started this 18 years ago, and ever since then, I think the first one was down at the Charismatic Center, and at some point, he always tells a story how he just stopped taking tickets because they just kind of lost. There were so many people. That they were running through the door, and it was just an amazing event. And ever since then, we have tried to bring some amazing dynamic and theologically and intellectually challenging speakers to each of our conferences. And this event coming up on the 29th of February at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church here in Houston.
That's the one in Houston here.
That's the one in Houston, exactly. So we partnered with the St. Augustine Institute, And we're bringing. I always have trouble with that. I heard the ad right before this, but anyway, so we're bringing Dr. Michael Barber back, and he's got a book that we're highlighting called "Salvation: What Every Catholic Should Know," and then one of his counterparts, Dr. John Bergsma, is a theology professor at the Franciscan University in Steubenville.
Now, these are some smart guys. Michael Barber and John Bergsma, I've gotten to hear some of their lectures, and wow, they really know their stuff.
They do, but I think one of the amazing parts is they are extremely approachable. They really bring the faith to a point where, just every Catholic in the pew, no matter where you are in your faith journey, everybody can understand them, and they take what can be a challenging topic like salvation and can really bring it down where and make it applicable into our daily lives.
Okay, now I have a way to go deeper on that because my it's kind of a personal connection. I'm a convert to Catholicism. I grew up Baptist, and in 2014 we entered the Catholic Church. Now, I view my conversion not so much as kind of a radical break with the past, but as entering into the fullness of the truth. Into the Catholic Church. I didn't leave a lot behind, but one thing that really did change drastically was my view of salvation. And this is really nuts and bolts. This is why we are Christian. This is why we exist as humans, is to be saved. God had a plan for Adam from the beginning, and Adam lost that plan, and we have to return to it. Now, the view that I had as a Protestant was that, it's a moment in time. Like you go from being not saved to turning a light switch on, and you are saved. And some, like Free Will Baptists say that you can turn that light switch on and off. Calvinists say, once it's on, it's stuck. But the Catholic Church has a much better view of salvation. It's not just a point in time or kind of an in and out kind of thing. The salvation is holistic. It's from your birth to your death and into eternity, and that whole all-encompassing thing. This is your entire existence, your entire reason for existence. And if you don't understand it, there is a lot at stake. I think Fullness of Truth is doing a great service to people when you tackle a topic like this. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, that's you're absolutely right, because I think that a lot of people. We say, we say it during the Mass for us men and for our salvation, but how many people really know what that means? There's a lot of times, I'm a convert, 1994, and there's a lot. It's still today. I find myself every now and then I'll be going through the motions, and and then I catch myself, and I'll actually try to. Sit back, learn more, understand, what's actually being said, how everything actually in the Mass actually relates back to our salvation. It can be an extremely, extremely complex topic if we're not careful. Yeah. And we need people like Dr. Barber and Dr. Bergsma to really kind of break it down into a way that we each can understand, that we can internalize, that we can more importantly, pass on to our kids. I mean, there are a lot of people out there listening now that may have had maybe have a friend or a family member that has fallen away from the faith. And that is one of the hardest things. I've got 4 kids. I'm looking every day trying to figure out how can I make it, how can I make the faith both relevant, interesting, and pertinent to their lives at each and every phase of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've chosen a couple great guys here because they do take these important, complex topics that they have studied so hard on, and they make it accessible. So this is great both for converts who need to understand that difference between, maybe some assumptions they have about salvation that aren't necessarily accurate, and cradle Catholics who maybe have never thought about the topic.
May I give Fullness of Truth a shout out and a compliment, Todd? My husband and I attended your San Antonio conference just last August. It was our first time attending a Fullness of Truth event. And part of what I loved about the event was that it was it stayed within church teaching. That's pretty awesome. But I love that there were so many families there, and that there was so much spiritual refreshment. I'm just going to say, it's like, being out there playing tennis for 3 hours and not having a cool glass of water, and then you get that cool drink and you're like, oh man, I sure needed that. And I'd forgotten I needed the drink, so I think especially we Americans are so married to our jobs. I mean, I'm a total workaholic. I freely admit it.
Recovering workaholic.
Yeah, Joshua said you're a recovering workaholic, and we get so busy, and it's easy to forget that we need spiritual refreshment. So I just think the fullness of truth is the best thing going to bring people into a situation where they can relax, they can enjoy the day, they can get their spiritual refreshment from these very theologically sound people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to step out of our faith every now and then and just kind of like you said, refresh it. We need to we need to have a reason why the joy is in our heart, right? As we're told that, and so a topic like this, you can plumb the depths for years and never even scrape the surface. So the opportunity to meet with Dr. Bergsma, Dr. Barber, and you can even The other part about this is that our bookstore will be there. You can refresh yourself with books and take them back, as well as meet the authors. Right? We want Fullness of Truth really tries to make the faith approachable. Really tries to bring our speakers in contact with the people that attend, and so not just in a talking head type situation, but really trying to be
I know.
relatable.
I got to personally meet Tim Staples at Catholic Answers. I mean, wow, that was a real high.
Yeah.
Because I respect him so much personally.
So this is going to be on Saturday, February 29th, Leap Day. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is it's a unique thing. Normally, it's a Friday and Saturday, but we're St. Michael Archangel Catholic Church is kind of a busy parish, and so
right there in the Galleria, good location.
Absolutely. So it's centrally located for everybody here in Houston, and we're very excited to be there. We'll be from 9 until 4. And
lunch is provided.
Lunch is provided as part of it. We also have priority seating, our Seraphim seating level. And with that, you get, in addition to your lunch, you'll have a Q&A session, special Q&A session with the speakers themselves. So you can ask your questions personally to them.
Wow. So this is a special opportunity for those who might have had burning questions to ask of theological experts. This is your chance if you wanted to get a hold of somebody from Steubenville or the Augustine Institute.
Absolutely.
The place you go is fullnessoftruth.org. Fullnessoftruth.org. Just click on the Houston conference there. It's the next one coming up. Now, you have a few others as well that are coming up. What's the one after this?
We do. So the next one after this is down in Corpus Christi, and that will be down at our at Most Precious Blood Parish down in Corpus Christi. And that's coming up on March 27th and 28th.
Okay, so we still got some time for that. What's the topic?
That is the Holy Spirit. So it's
nice.
I'm going to butcher this Latin. Veni Sancte Spiritus, rediscovering the power and purpose of the Holy Spirit.
Sounds good to me. What's the one after that? You said there was one in San Antonio?
Yeah, we've so a couple of dates. We've also have a July 24th and 25th in Keller, Texas, at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, and we're still working on the speakers there, but we got the dates locked in.
Well, I know there's a good radio station up there.
Yes, exactly. And I got to thank you guys for all your support. No matter where we are, the Guadalupe Radio Network is always been supportive, and with both what do you call it? Public service, PSAs, public service announcements, but coming out and supporting the event itself.
Of course. We're on the same mission, and the whole purpose is to save souls. And you're really going into the heart of it with salvation, what every Catholic needs to know. So
August 21st through the 23rd is in San Antonio Hyatt Hill Country Resort.
There's the San Antonio one.
And that's our big one. I think Larry Massey has been on here a few times before. He calls that like the Catholic Disneyland.
Catholic Disneyland.
Just seeing, I mean, when you can see 1,500 to 2,000 amazing Catholic families. And, I was talking with some folks about how there's so many large Catholic families there. They love driving up and seeing all the vans, so they know that they're not alone, right?
The telltale signs of a Catholic parking lot.
Right, exactly.
That's great. Okay, well, Todd Johnson from Fullness of Truth, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. I hope to see everyone there on February 29th at St. Michael's. I will be there, and along with Dr. Michael Barber and Dr. John Bergsma, and get your tickets now at fullnessoftruth.org. We've got more to come today on the Catholic Lunch Break with Sarah Cortez, Joshua Wren, who is the, how would you put it, Joshua? You're the founder of...
Founder and editor-in-chief.
One of the hottest book publishers in the Catholic world right now, and we're going to tell you all about it right after this.
Hey, dear listener, you could win a brand new Cadillac, a 2020 Cadillac CT5 Luxury Edition to be exact. It's GRN's 20th anniversary car raffle. Upgrade your style and commute in comfort, all the while supporting the mission of Guadalupe Radio Network. The drawing for the Cadillac is on March 6th, so get your tickets soon. Each entry is only $25, and you get a fifth ticket free when you spend $100. Just go to grnonline.com to purchase your tickets. That's grnonline.com.
I'd known about the station for a long time, but I have to confess I never tuned in. Perhaps I was biased. But then that changed, actually. Once I started listening, I kept the dial where it was at. I like Teresa Tomeo and Al Kress, and I just like their personalities. Call to Communion with Dr. Dave Anders and More to Life with Pop Checks. I really, really love the show. I've learned a lot. But, also, I really like that there's prayers interspersed. I get a lot more praying done in the day that I wouldn't otherwise. We want to support the radio station for sure.
The Guadalupe Radio Network, Catholic Radio. Radio for your soul.
If you're a Catholic business owner, I want to challenge you. Are you doing everything you can for the well-being of your employees? Are you praying for them? Could you pray with them? Why not bring them with you to the Catholic Radio Networking Prayer Breakfast? I don't mean make it mandatory, just sponsor a table and then invite them to come with you before starting the workday. You never know whose life you might change. Register for the prayer breakfast at grnonline.com.
The Café Católica program seeks to help young adults encounter Christ and His church. All young adults are invited to join us throughout the year. We gather at different locations around Houston for a talk, prayer, and fellowship. The next Café meeting will be on Thursday, March 12th at Our Mother of Mercy Church from 6 to 9 p.m., where national speaker Dr. Ansel Augustine will give the presentation. For more information, go to our website, cafecatolica.com, or go to archgh.org and search for Café.
Catholic Lunch Break here on AM 1430. That's what you're listening to. My name is Tim Mott, your host and also general manager of this radio station. Joining us right now, as you've heard throughout the show, is Sarah Cortez, the founder of Catholic Literary Arts. And Sarah, you brought a special guest to Houston. Now, normally I say no to most of the national guests because this program is where we reserve space to talk about Houston. Right. But because you are operating here in Houston, and because, Joshua, you came to speak in Houston at a couple of different awesome venues, I decided to allow it. Also, I'm a sucker for Tolkien, so you've got a Tolkien book.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim, because I will tell you, everywhere that Joshua has appeared, people are just like, it's like Moses striking his staff on the rock in the desert and water bursting forth, because people are excited about what he's doing. If I may compliment you, Joshua, by his level of knowledge, because there's so many Catholics that are both spiritually and intellectually hungry. And Todd, I think you referenced that through obliquely through some of your remarks. I mean, people, not everybody, they don't have to be, but I think they're. What I'm finding as I do, especially my second Saturdays of the month, Doorways to the Sacred Speakers Series, which is free and open to the public, and you've helped me promote, Tim, as well. Thank you. But I'm bringing a Catholic author, publisher, or editor, and letting them present and do Q&A.
Is that what you were here for?
No, he was actually here for something else. But, I mean, people are hungry. They're showing up, and they're like, wow, I heard about this on the radio, or wow, I saw this in the bulletin, or, I'm having people call me from Illinois, Maryland and all these places, rural Texas, and say they're so interested.
Well, when you're living in a spiritual desert like the 21st century, there's just so much that is lacking that we really need as humans. And so I'm really glad that you're here to talk about it, Josh. So Joshua Wren, is that how you pronounce it?
That's right. Yeah, the H is silent.
H-R-E-N, Wren. You are the founder and editor-in-chief of Wiseblood Books.
Yes.
Okay, and you're also the assistant director of the Honors College at Belmont Abbey.
Exactly.
Let's get to know you a bit. So are you married? Do you have kids?
Yep, married with children. So we have 3 little ones so far, God willing.
Great.
There'll be more on the way.
And you live there in North Carolina?
Live there in North Carolina. I've been at the Abbey for 3 years. And about 7 years ago, I founded Wiseblood Books, and I'll just say a little bit about that. So in the 20th century, middle of the 20th century, there are a lot of Catholic writers sort of highly visible in American literary culture. We think of Edwin O'Connor and Flannery O'Connor, Walker Percy, J.F. Powers. These were all fiction writers, novelists, short story writers.
Powerhouses.
Poets.
Very
powerhouses.
influential.
And their influence went far beyond the Catholic world. And so one of the things that has happened is really a deterioration of that level of visibility and influence, right? On the level of national culture, there's been a significant decline in writers who are Catholic. Those authors who are Catholic and who are visible on the national level typically keep their Catholicism compartmentalized, quiet, right? And at some
hidden.
point sort of hidden.
Why do you think that is? Is it a general decline across the whole board, or is it Catholics being kind of marginalized?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So it's a little bit of both, and that's actually one of the things that I found when I was beginning Wiseblood Books. I was editing for Dappled Things, which is the only Catholic literary arts magazine in English, and I strongly recommend the listeners to subscribe to that. It's $20 a year or something like that for 4 issues.
Were you the chief editor there?
I was a managing editor for quite a while.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and what I found in working through the submissions is that there are a lot of really promising poets and fiction writers. And then I get into conversations with them through email and hear the same story over and over and over again, which is that when they took their stories, their manuscripts to the New York publishing industry, there was real resistance and immediate sort of rejection. Now, it's hard to get published just in general. So I first thought, well, maybe these stories aren't really just that good. But then I kept coming across these literarily excellent works, and they told me that they couldn't do anything to get them published.
Wow.
So that was my logic in founding Wiseblood Books, was to develop a way in which to get these books out. And I really did it on a shoestring budget. It was after I finished my doctorate. We had two children. I had 120 job applications out, and I came back from an interview for a barista position, which I was going to take, in the interim.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they said, you're overqualified to make coffee. So at that point, I didn't feel guilty in trying something more radical. Did a lot of praying, of course. And just one other thing, what happened around the exact same time, unbeknownst to me, is that Dana Joy, who's the former chairman of the National Endowment of the Arts, Catholic poet, Catholic public intellectual, he just finished his term as the Poet Laureate of California. He authored an essay published in First Things originally, called The Catholic Writer Today.
I'm going to hold it up for your audience, just in case.
If you want to go see it, she's holding it up for the camera at facebook.com/GRN online for our live Facebook video of this radio program.
So this has been a profoundly influential essay. It's ignited a national conversation and debate about Catholic letters in the contemporary world. And what Dana Joy says at the end of his essay, so I'll say 2 things. At the beginning, he says, there's this paradox. 25% of Americans are Catholics. There's no one in national literary culture who's identifying explicitly as Catholic. That's a paradox. That's a problem.
Wow.
What are we going to do about this? And at the last paragraph of the essay, he says, the Catholic literary tradition is like an old, crumbling, beautiful immigrant neighborhood that has been abandoned, right? We've all sort of fled, he said, to the homogeneous suburbs of the imagination.
The homogeneous suburbs of the imagination.
We need to return to those rich immigrant neighborhoods, relearn, recover our tradition, and continue to build on it. right? So that's
okay.
So what happened was I wrote a 14-page response to his essay when it appeared in First Things, disagreeing with certain points, most of which he was right about, by the way, after we talked about it. But this ignited a friendship between the two of us, and with his help, he's enabled Wiseblood to become visible on a national stage. There's been 3 biannual Catholic Literary Imagination Conferences at this point.
Wow.
The one thing about those is that they tend to appeal to kind of the Catholic literati and intellectual crowd. One of the things that I really love about what Sarah Cortez is doing with Catholic literary arts is that she's reaching beyond these sort of small circles of people who are already maybe totally sold on the importance of literature, and bringing it to grade schools, right, and beyond.
Taking
right?
a page from the Protestants and evangelizing.
Absolutely.
Yes, imagine that.
Absolutely.
And Dana Gioia was the person who introduced me to Joshua and Wiseblood Press. And Dana and I taught at a secular poetry conference, but he gave me a signed copy. He said, I take one copy of this monograph wherever I go, just one, because I trust the Holy Spirit will put one person in conversation with me who needs to read this. And he said, that person is you. And he gave it to me, signed it, dedicated it. I stayed up till 3 a.m. reading it that night. It's very eminently readable. I encourage everybody to buy it. But anyway, and that set me on fire. That's a huge part of the reason why that enabled me, through the grace of God, to do Catholic Literary Arts and Fearless Catholic Writing Camp for kids.
Yeah, I'm sensing there's a lot of exciting things happening in the church right now. I'm sensing a kind of a liturgical revival in some ways, renewal, and also this. It looks like you guys are on the forefront of a Catholic literary renewal or revival. Are you seeing that there are sprouts coming up and flowers maybe opening in this area?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the most important things about those conferences that I was just mentioning, even though there's a sort of more limited audience than I would like, I love doing talks at parishes on the Catholic literary tradition so we can educate people who don't know their own inheritance. So they might not even know who Flannery O'Connor is, right? And sort of trying to translate what she's up to, what she's doing. When she says that, most of my stories are about the action of grace on characters who are not very willing to support the action of grace. What does that mean, and why is that important for us to consider, right, in a literary form? It actually has a lot to do with the question of salvation, right, because Catholic writers tend to be obsessed with the salvation of their characters, right? We look at Graham Greene. He has these whiskey priests, right? He's wanting them to be saved, right? But some of the characters in these Catholic literary works end up choosing their own damnation, right? And you feel it more keenly, more immediately, more intensely because it's told in story form. Well, so that's a side note. But with regards to these conferences, one of the main things that it achieved is just getting people who are going to do things and get things done for the Catholic literary tradition together in the same space for 3 days, and to come to know one another. Because what Dana said when he was traveling around the country is every city he stopped in, he would hear the same story. A Catholic artist telling him that they're all alone in the world. There are no other Catholic artists in the country. They don't know what to do. This is seemingly a hopeless project. Well, if you hear that 1,000 times, then that's just not true, but people just need to be connected. Right?
Yeah, even Elijah felt the same way in the Old Testament. Now, I want to get this question out there before I forget. Why did you choose the name Wiseblood, and what does that mean?
Sure. Well, so Wiseblood was one of Flannery O'Connor's novels. Flannery O'Connor is a Southern American Catholic writer.
Could say the preeminent Catholic writer of the 20th century.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe barring Chesterton, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, yeah. And so I chose Wiseblood for 2 reasons. One, because it was Flannery O'Connor's novel. I was hoping that the Flannery O'Connor estate would sue us, and then we'd get national recognition really quickly.
Because you're kind of baiting them.
He's teasing, folks.
But the true reason is that this is a kind of a comic novel. It's a grotesque novel, meaning that she uses these kind of disfigured situations and people in order to help us register our own fallenness more profoundly. And the amazing thing about Wiseblood is that it found resonance in both the Catholic circles and the wider literary establishment. And that's what I want for Wiseblood Books. We're not actually an explicitly Catholic press.
So you could publish anything.
We could publish anything, and sometimes, we don't publish all Catholic writers. We publish authors who have a sacramental vision, seeing. I always emphasize this, right? We say this when we say the creed, right? You're saying, do we really mean these things? We believe in things seen and unseen. One of the things that the Catholic literary imagination helps us to do is to get a taste of, through metaphor, through some sort of sensed means, these unseen things, right? And so that's really our mission, and I'm not ashamed of it at all, but we don't expressly advertise ourselves as a Catholic press, because then anyone could just come across our website, anyone who loves Flannery O'Connor or just American letters, and could end up buying one of our novels.
Okay, and so as you're encountering new Catholic writers and Catholics that may have not been discovered yet, who do you think our listeners maybe should keep an eye on right now, who might be at the beginning of their career or have a treasure trove of undiscovered material, like some names that we're not familiar with that we need to be looking for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So from the middle of the century, we talked about Flannery O'Connor, Walker Percy. That's sort of, everybody talks about them. GRR Tolkien, right?
Yes.
There's a funny essay written for First Things by Randy Boyagoda, where the first line is, "I'm sick of Flannery O'Connor. I'm sick of everyone talking about Flannery O'Connor," right, in these Catholic literary circles, because we do all gravitate around her, right? So in the middle of the century, I would say Edwin O'Connor wrote a novel called The Edge of Sadness, and it's about an alcoholic priest. It's a very powerful novel. It actually won the Pulitzer Prize.
Wow.
J.F. Powers is also
Powers.
mid-20th century Catholic writer. Probably on the level of The Sentence, it creates the most exquisite, on the level of The Sentence, literary works of any Catholic writer. I would say he surpasses even Flannery O'Connor in that regard.
That's impressive.
God forgive me.
Better be careful.
In terms of living Catholic writers, I would especially just like to emphasize two. One, on the poetry side, James Matthew Wilson.
James Matthew Wilson.
Mm-hmm. And he's published two collections of poetry at this point. The first, Wise Blood Books published, it's called Some Permanent Things. And the second is called The Hanging God. And he published that through Angelico Press, which is another mid-size Catholic press. And he's, a burgeoning Catholic intellectual, and there's a real sense in which, right, he'll sort of pick up the torch from Dana Gioia whenever Dana Gioia gets too tired to do all the good work that he's doing.
Right. We can never let it rest on just one, whether it's Flannery O'Connor, Dana Gioia. I mean, so James Matthew Wilson.
James Matthew Wilson on the poetry side. Then on the fiction side, I would highly recommend keeping an eye on Glenn Arbery. So
Glenn Arbery.
Glenn Arbery is actually the president of Wyoming Catholic College right now. And so how amazing is it, and how unusual is it that you have a novelist president, right?
Yeah, administration and creative writing don't always, complement each other.
Yeah, it's almost unfathomable, right? And so he has this trilogy of novels that he's working on. We published the first one so far. It's called Bearings and Distances. And when I mentioned the trilogy, he models it after Dante's Divine Comedy, which takes Dante towards his salvation, but not before he passes through hell and passes through purgatory on the way to paradise. And Glenn's three novels are modeled after that same passage, right? So the first one, Bearings and Distances, it is it's not for the squeamish because it's the one that takes you through, so to speak, hell. But the next one is called Boundaries of Eden, and that's one that we're publishing later this year. And it's more palatable if you're faint of heart, because it's the purgatorial section. Right?
Well, that's awesome. So how big is your catalog? If people go to wisebloodbooks.com, what are they going to find?
Yeah, about 30 books. And what we've done is, so the first year that I found it, as I mentioned, right, was sort of in between things while we were living in this kind of rundown bohemian neighborhood of Milwaukee, paying $500 rent, and could just do this full time. And I was publishing about a book a month. Then, since I've been in the academy, we've really just published 2 or 3 books a year, and that's actually been a huge blessing, because we can be extremely picky and selective and only publish, right, sort of the cream of the cream of the cream. So.
Wow. Okay, so for listeners who maybe have thought about writing themselves or they want to kind of get into it, I think you guys, the two of you, are a wonderful resource because you're dealing at the kind of the intelligentsia level and trying to really make this a renewal. And Sarah, you are bringing it to the common person who, as you said earlier, someone who may not have done writing before or may not know that they are interested in deeply reading books. What do you have that's available for them?
Well, it depends whether they're adults or children, and maybe I'll focus on the children because we want to build for the future. We have just opened registration for Fearless Catholic Writing Camp.
Fearless Catholic Writing Camp.
Fearless Catholic Writing Camp. 1 week. The week of June 22nd through 26th at the University of St. Thomas, 3rd graders through 12th graders. A holy, wholesome, and fun environment to teach writing skills to your children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, etc. We're looking to double the enrollment. I am actively, in case any of your listeners are interested, I'm actively soliciting scholarship money.
Okay.
If you give us $250, we will make sure that a wonderful child whose family could not otherwise afford Fearless Catholic Writing Camp can attend our camp. So CatholicLiteraryArts.org. Catholic Literary Arts. You can register your children, and we started getting registrations almost 2 months ago for this next June of 2020.
Now, this is like a week-long camp.
This is a Monday through Friday. It ends with a public reading. We produce a printed anthology. Every family gets an anthology with the work of all the children. It's 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
It's very possible that one of your students is going to be the next Flannery O'Connor because they have to come from somewhere. And if we're dealing with this dry, desert of Catholic literary, the Catholic literary world, the culture is just sucking it out of us.
Right.
We need an oasis like this to someone to blossom.
And I will tell you, just real short, my own story, because I have 13 published books. I was
30 seconds.
Yeah. I was scared to be known as a Catholic 5 or 6 years ago as a Catholic writer because the literary world I knew was going to skewer me.
But then someone gave you the permission to be Catholic.
That's actually what Dana said is every reading he gives now, he says, I'm a Catholic writer. And that's made a massive difference.
Yeah, all artists across all the spectrums of the arts are having the same trouble.
Yes.
And so we need to be the place where they go. So thank you very much, Joshua Wren, Sarah Cortez, and Todd Johnson, Joel Matthews for joining us on the Catholic Lunch Break today. If you guys don't mind sticking around, we can keep broadcasting on Facebook for a little bit. Maybe dive into that J.R.R. Tolkien topic that I was teasing on. But right now we have to say goodbye to the radio audience. So radio audience, if you want to join us on Facebook, just go to facebook.com/GRN online. We'll continue this conversation for a little bit, and you can participate too. So go to facebook.com/GRN online. GRNonline.com is the place for everything Guadalupe Radio Network. You can get your car raffle tickets there, sign up for the prayer breakfast, and also just send me an email if you like. wisebloodbooks.com, CatholicLiteraryArts.com, .org, and fullnessoftruth.org. So we will see you again next Monday for the Catholic Lunch Break here on AM 1430 KSHJ. Okay, we are back for the after show, taking a page from Joe McLean's book. We're on GRN Alive Monday mornings. He always goes on another half hour. I don't know if we're going to go a full half hour here, but I'm a Tolkien geek, and I wanted to talk about this because, Joshua, you have written a book called J.R.R. Tolkien's, let me get the title here, Middle Earth and the Return of the Common Good, J.R.R. Tolkien and Political Philosophy.
Wow.
Okay. The title says it all, right? So, but how did this come about in your life?
Yeah. So I basically read Tolkien when I was little. The first thing that I ever wrote when I was in 4th grade, my first novel, quote unquote, was a 96-page imitation of The Lord of the Rings.
Nice.
And so I loved him since I was little. But what happened was, when I was 12 or 13, I kind of put him in the dustbin of childhood and swore it off. And that's something that you do when you're a young man, but then you kind of move on. And then two things happened. One, I had children, and
that changes things.
Yes, and then I also began to teach. And so I wanted to take on a project that would allow me to be a good father and be a good scholar. And so I read my children The Lord of the Rings, I think 3 times in 3 years or something like that, and they loved it. We would just sit there on the couch every evening, and I'd go as long as I could and then ask my eldest to pick up if I'd lose my voice. And then I began to teach Tolkien every single semester for about 3 years as well. And I've studied political philosophy quite a bit in graduate school and started to notice that there are things that Tolkien gets right or can help us to explore through myth that help us to understand the political dimension of reality as well. And so the book is not expressly supposed to be Tolkien's political philosophy, but rather the intersection of big ideas in political philosophy and Tolkien's mythology.
Right, because he had such a vivid mythological imagination. But I would get the sense when I was reading it that he almost actively avoided politics. Like, he did not like it.
Right.
And so the Shire has almost no government, and there's monarchs in there, the Return of the King and all. But apart from that, how are you finding
excellent questions? Yeah,
literary or political philosophy in there?
No, those are excellent observations. And so, one of the things that I realize is that when we talk about the Shire and the hobbits, it's presented as sort of this pinnacle of life. It's almost like a utopian existence, right? But if you look at Tolkien's letters and in the preface, he actually indicates that the fact that they have no political life seems to be a weakness. It seems to make them less than fully actualized, right?
They're vulnerable to the outside world.
They're vulnerable to the outside world. Part of the reason that they're able to be apolitical or sort of not interested in common concerns that affect people beyond themselves and their household is that there are the rangers and the bounders who are basically keeping the enemy away from them. They don't even realize that, right? And the mayor, the biggest thing that he does is basically oversee banquets. Now, don't get me wrong, banquets are great.
Nice work if you can get it.
But yeah, I would imagine many politicians would be very grateful if that's all they had to
Gumbo
do.
Festival this Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is
I'm working my way
gumbo,
there.
Yes.
But basically what my argument is, this is the simplification of the thesis, is that these hobbits become more political as they recognize that what matters to them and what will lead to their own good is also good for everyone else, and namely it's the destruction of the ring. What they have to do to destroy the ring of power, which is the absolute corrupting force, is to combine forces with other people and work out compromise. What's politics is the nature of, right? By its very nature, it requires compromise.
It's self-sacrificial in some ways, and how do you see that kind of self-sacrifice, relating to our current political environment in the United States?
Right. Yeah. So if you look at Aragorn, for example, and you look at some of the other leadership figures, right, in The Lord of the Rings, one of the things that they embody is humility. Right, and actually, when we were working our way through the daily mass readings, I think it was 2 weeks ago. The story of King David really helps us to recover a sense in which kings can embody virtue and can be this sort of icon that we're looking for of this father that we all want to serve and humble ourselves before. And why particularly do Tolkien's kings sort of evoke that from us? That was another question that I had, right? Where we live in a democracy, right?
Yeah.
Why is this thing so wildly popular, right? Aren't we all sort of so grateful that we threw off the shackles of monarchy, et cetera, right? That's
and we are. We're celebrating President's Day today. We're still in this democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question that I was sort of searching out was, well, why is The Lord of the Rings nonetheless so wildly popular, right? And you think about that humility that those leaders demonstrated. It's reminiscent of David. Imagine, think about what happens when a political leader apologizes and repents publicly for something that they've done wrong. Right.
Wait a minute. When was the last time that happened?
That's exactly my point, right?
So, half the scandals that go on today could be they would evaporate in 30 seconds, and the press would lose interest if they would just own up to the fact that they did it, they made a mistake, and they move on.
That's right.
From there. But they tend to cover it up. They tend to do I forget. It's the lack of my biblical
Mistakes
thing, but,
were made.
When David, when David, sent his general off, right, because he was coveting his wife.
Yeah.
I mean, that could have been, and he tried to hide it. He was like, he tried to. Anytime you try to hide something from anybody else, I mean, call it the press, call it God, whatever. I mean, it's going to be found out at some point, or it's going to eat you alive.
And
right?
he suffered the consequences, a full civil war and a divided kingdom of Israel there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah.
I think, from Aragorn's standpoint, I think that it really, we want our leaders. I think the mythology there is the monarchical aspiration is you want leaders that are in it for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
Right. And every time Aragorn has been pushed to be that leader, he is pushed back. He's like, I'm not ready. I don't want it.
Right. That's what Plato says about the ideal political leader is, right. The ideal political leader is the one who you try to get to do the job and he sort of says, no, thank you. I have other things that I'd rather do. And you have to kind of drag him into it, right? He resists it because he's virtuous and he knows that he's going to be asked to do things that are going to be really complicated, but nonetheless, he's the man for the job.
A mark of a good bishop, too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I believe Tolkien wrote at one point when he was pressed on like what his political philosophy was, he kind of, said, well, maybe kind of some sort of benevolent anarchy.
Yeah, well, actually, so he's an unconstitutional monarchy.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
What can we learn specifically as we're going into an election year here? Should this influence our voting, or is this more of a kind of a way just for us to enrich our lives and we have to, hold our noses and do our political duty anyway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, one of the things that I explore in the book is the problem of dependence and our claims to self-sufficiency. And so, in a political year, politics is reduced to campaigns and votes, right? But we're political animals, Aristotle says, in a way that is much more extensive, and I would argue in many ways more important and richer than that, just casting your ballot. I'm not saying that that's not important, but that's when we talk about politics, that's almost all we think of. And that's part of the reason why when we talk about ourselves as political beings, we tend to speak of it in negative terms, like, politics, right? Politics is synonymous with lies, debauchery, right? Schemes, hiding. But if you think about it in the broader sense, right, it's any situation in which there's a common aim which multiple people are working towards, right? So in one of the chapters I explore Smeagol and Frodo and Sam, right, are working their way towards Mount Doom, and Smeagol, the corrupted creature who sort of talks to himself because he's so divided within his own soul, they think that they've shed him, but actually he finds them, right? And instead of killing him, which Frodo has the opportunity to do, they realize that this sworn enemy is actually someone who they depend upon, right? So they literally cannot get to where they need to be without depending upon the last person in the world who they would want to depend on. And then what that does, right, and when they encounter this disfigured creature, they begin to act differently toward him. At first, they shackle him, right, and he complains and says, "Rabbits," right? Sort of trying to condemn them. But what happens over time is they realize that this is damaging him even further, the way that they've been acting towards him. They begin to act more virtuously toward him, with gentleness and with charity, especially Frodo. Sam, not so much. He's not.
They
He's not
begin to
it.
see
He's
him as not necessarily an equal, but he has worth.
That's right.
Right, and just like we are to treat, we don't have to like everybody, but we have to love everybody. We have to love our enemy. And if there's one thing that's probably the hardest to do, it's to love thine enemy. Somebody that has hurt you in some way, or hurt your family, or hurt the country, or whatever.
I think the fact that you brought in the common good, that's something that we can lose the vision of very easily, and it becomes more about like, the things that I believe have to be right, and it has to be my way because these are right. But we're losing that sense of the common good where we need to go out of ourselves.
That's exactly right. And so, this is what I bring Catholic social teaching to bear heavily upon this work, And we tend to, if we think of the common good at all, we have this kind of warped perception of it, that it's just this kind of, the common in our culture is really just this quote unquote neutral space where millions of individuals can do whatever they want, right? That's sort of what we typically mean if we speak about the common good. Or it's this sort of heavy-handed reference to the state or something running everything, right? And so both of those, right, I think are erroneous. In that example of Frodo and Sam and Smeagol, right, what is good for Frodo is good for Sam. What is good for Sam is good for Smeagol. What is good for Smeagol is good for Frodo, right? And we tend to think like what's good for me is going to be in competition with what's good for Sarah, who's sitting next to me here, right? Almost as though we can't achieve anything that's going to redound to both of our flourishing, right? And I think that's something that we really need to recover.
And that goes right back into Catholic social teaching and Catholic theology of how we are the body of Christ and the human race, and Christ came to save the world.
Well, it also demands that there's an objective good.
Yes.
Because the idea that there's an objective good or objective truth,
and not just mutually agreed upon preferences,
is something that has been pushed out of most of politics. Well, I shouldn't say most. Been pushed out of public discourse. In other words, it doesn't matter if Jesus Christ said, "Don't do X, Y, and Z." And
we have to
you
respect
as Christian or you as
privatized
Catholic
beliefs.
are trying your best to follow what Jesus Christ said to do. So in the public arena, there's so much, resistance to, it really, there is no objective good because everything is okay.
Well, this is the thing, right? So and even trying to act as though we can privatize ourselves is a serious flaw. It's not just simply not true. One of the writers who I draw on in the book is Charles de Connick. He was a Canadian Thomistic philosopher, and he wrote a book called, actually, On the Primacy of the Common Good. And in there, he argues that, and he's basically just sort of rehashing St. Thomas here. He argues that, even our most private thoughts either contribute to or detract from the common good.
That's right.
So we can't, right, if we're thinking of someone in a harsh or ruthless way, right, in a hateful way, it's not as though we tend to think of it like it's not actually affecting him, right? The only way in which we tend to limit sort of what it means to harm someone to some sort of physical or verbal abuse or something like that. But we are body and soul, right? We are metaphysical beings, right? And so even what we think or don't think redounds either towards the common good or detracts from it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. Joel, I wanted to ask you, as a CPA and as a Catholic CPA, where I know you live your faith because I see you live your faith, how do you navigate that kind of stuff with your clients? I'm assuming not all of them are Christians even, but how do you, as a CPA, make that, bridge that gap?
That's an excellent question. As a CPA, in other words, nobody wants to give the government more than their fair share.
Right. Your job is to help your clients keep their money.
Our job is a mathematical calculation. We take the positives and the negatives, the debits and the credits, and we put them together. However, sometimes it's tough with a client when you are speaking with them and they're like, well, can't you this or can't you that? And we said, well, no, that's not the way the law is, or that's not really related to your business. That's a personal expense. That's a tough conversation to tell somebody that's not deductible. That's not, I'm self-employed. That's usually a big, everything should be deductible. Well, no, that's not the way the rules are written. So once we tell them what the final number is, they don't like to give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Let's put it that way. And we've lost clients over the years, and I've told the staff that's okay. That's not the type of client we want, because we know at the end of the day when they tabulate up our personal debits and credits, we want to make sure that we were on the right side.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now, I appreciate all of you. Thank you all for coming today and sticking around a little bit later than the advertised time. But
thank you so much. This has been a great blessing.
It's been absolutely fun.
Thanks to you, Tim. You've been working very hard, as Joel has, and so thank you.
Well, hopefully it went smoothly. And Facebook, thank you for sticking around with us. The few of you that are there, the faithful few, we band of brothers. So, Joan, I see you there. Thank you so much. And we'll do this again next next Monday. God bless you.